In this video, we're going to talk about evaluating algebraic expressions using order of operations. So the first thing is, what is an algebraic expression? So you've probably used a lot of expressions throughout math in your high school, middle school, and elementary school years. But what's special about an algebraic expression is that instead of just adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing different numbers, we also have variables in there as well. And variables represent an unknown value. So here you can see that a variable could be x, but it could be any letter of the alphabet. So one thing that we're going to focus on in this video is, how do we evaluate an expression when we have multiple operations? And that's when we're going to use the order of operations. So you may have seen this in high school as PEMDAS. So PEMDAS. And that was just an acronym to help you remember what order you evaluate things. So I have them listed out here also. So the first thing we're going to look for is parentheses. And when we have more than one set of parentheses, we want to evaluate from the inside out. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a later example in the video. The second thing we look for is exponents. Then we're going to do our multiplication and division. Now this step and step 4, these are where the most problems arise. Because in PEMDAS, we think, oh, the M comes before D, so we're going to do multiplication before our division. But that is not always the case. So when we're looking for multiplication and division, we're evaluating them in the order that they occur when we read it from left to right. So we're looking at, oh, if division comes first, then I'm going to do that, and then the multiplication. Same thing with the addition and subtraction. We want to do it in the order that they appear from left to right. So first off, why are we evaluating algebraic expressions? What are we using this for? So this is going to be very helpful when we begin to solve equations later on in this course. We need to know the basics of how to evaluate when we have numbers and operations and what order everything goes in. And in this example right here in this table, this is also going to show you why order of operations is super important. So they did the same first step. So they were evaluating 8 divided by 2 minus 1 plus 3. And on the left-hand side, they followed the order of operations. They saw, after they did 8 divided by 2, they saw, okay, we now have subtraction and addition, and we need to do whichever comes first from left to right. And so since we see 4 minus 1 first, that's what we do. So they did that to get 3, then they had 3 plus 3 to get the number 6. But on the right-hand side, they did it the wrong way. They said, oh, well, addition comes before subtraction in our acronym of PEMDAS, so we're going to add first. And so they did. They did 1 plus 3 to get 4, and then 4 minus 4 to get 0. So if we don't follow order of operations, we can get very different values. So let's go ahead and practice with algebraic expressions. And one thing to note is that with algebraic expressions, because we have variables, before we even think about doing order of operations, we're going to need to use a specific value that's given for our variable in our expression. So we'll have to plug that in first. And so let's see what I mean by that in our first example. So here we're asked to evaluate the expression 4 plus 2 times the quantity x minus 4 squared minus 3 for x equals 7. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in this value 7 for x. So we're going to have 4 plus 2 times the quantity. Instead of x, we now have a 7 because that's the value. minus 4 squared minus 3. So let's write our order of operations over here. So we have parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, and addition and subtraction. So first thing I'm looking for is parentheses, which we do have. So I'm going to do 7 minus 4, and we get 3. And then I'm going to copy everything else that we have. So we've done our parentheses. So next on the list is any exponents, which we also have. So 3 squared we're going to evaluate, which is the same thing as 3 times 3 to get 9. And then again, copy everything. Our next step, we're looking for any multiplication and division. And in this case, we only have some multiplication. So 2 times 9 evaluates to be 18. And then we still have this 4 plus and then minus 3. And then our last steps are to look for our addition and subtraction. In this case, we have 4 plus 18 first. So we're going to do that. And that evaluates to 22. And then we still have this minus 3. And the very last thing is 22 minus 3, which is 19. So 19 is the value of this algebraic expression when x equals 7. On the next example, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated because we have some parentheses within our parentheses. So this is what I was talking about earlier. So let me write out our order of operations. So here we're evaluating in brackets. We have 4 minus x times the quantity 2 minus 1. And then plus 4 squared divided by 8 times 3. And we're evaluating this for x equals 3. So just like that previous example, first thing we're going to do is we're going to plug in 3 for our variable x. So we get everything else to be the same, but now instead of x, we have 3. All right, so still, the very first thing we're looking at is parentheses, which we have parentheses within parentheses. So we're going to focus on these brackets first. And we want to work inside out. And so since we have this 2 minus 1 in parentheses inside our brackets, that's the very first thing we're going to do. So 2 minus 1 evaluates to be 1. And copy everything else in our expression. And then we have that we are subtracting and multiplying in our brackets. So just like we would do our order of operations outside of our parentheses, we're going to do the same thing, but inside of them to get rid of those brackets first. So I need to do my multiplication before we do that subtraction. So evaluating 3 times 1, we get 3. And then copying the rest of my expression. And now we have just subtraction left in our brackets. So I'm going to do 4 minus 3 to get 1. So we have gotten rid of all of our parentheses. And the next thing that we're looking for is our exponents, which we have. So we're going to evaluate 4 squared, which again is 4 times 4. So we get 16. copying the rest of my expression. So we got rid of all of our exponents. They've all been evaluated. So next we're looking for our multiplication and division. Remember, we're looking for which comes first from left to right. So in this expression, we have 1 plus 16 divided by 8. So the division came before this multiplication on the end. So we're evaluating 16 divided by 8, which gets us 2. We're still not done with our multiplication. So we have 2 times 3, which is 6. And we still have this 1 plus in front of it. And now our final evaluation is going to be 1 plus 6 to get us 7. So remember that when we evaluate our expressions, the very first step we're going to do is plug in a value for x or whatever our given variable is. We're going to do the operations within the parentheses first. If we have multiple parentheses, we're going to work inside out. Then we're going to evaluate the exponents. And when it comes to our multiplication and division, as well as the addition and subtraction, for each of those steps, we're going to do them left to right, whichever comes first. So you'll do all the multiplication and division, and then the addition and subtraction. I hope you find this video helpful and wish you luck as you are evaluating your algebraic expressions.